All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. This is the Greater Killeen Chamber of Commerce. My name is Rebecca Moon, and I'm here with a couple of experts that work with small businesses all the time or with SBA loans. And guys, thank you so much for joining us. We've had a few technical difficulties, so those of you who are trying to log on or watch us, thanks for being patient with us. Sometimes technology is wonderful, and sometimes we have to work with it a little bit. So I appreciate your help with all of that. Just to let everybody know who's tuning in, we do understand that this is a fluid situation. Things are changing all the time. So please, if you can log on to the Facebook underneath with the comments, let us know what business you're with. That way we can make sure when any changes come that we can send them your way. Another way for you to get good information, if you go to killenchamber.com, scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page, there's an opportunity there for you to join our newsletter. Right now we're sending out daily reminders of things that are happening, notices that we get from the governor, from various entities that you're going to want to be made aware of. This webinar is being recorded so that we can share it. So if you have questions later, you need to refer back to it or have something that you want to know, please definitely let us know that. And also later, if you need some one-on-one assistance, definitely let us know and we can figure out a way to help you with your very specific request. So let me just take a moment and introduce our two guests. So Elysia, would you go first, please?
Sure. So I'm Alysia Perkins with the Chamber of Commerce. I'm a business counselor located in the Killeen Central Texas Business Resource Center. And what I do is I assist all business owners, potential business owners with growing and starting their business. All of our services are free. I do have a coworker by the name of Miriam Barraza, so it's two of us in that office that can provide any assistance, all free of charge.
Wonderful. And Jesse?
Hi, everyone. My name is Jesse Bro. I am the Senior Vice President of SBA Lending with First National Bank Texas. My responsibility at the bank is to work with small businesses for financing and work with the SBA programs that are offered, both the regular SBA programs and then when they have special programs that come out, such as during times like these. So happy to talk about some of the updates to what is going on in the world of SBA right now.
Fantastic. Jesse, without further ado, let's just jump right into it. We know that there are a lot of questions regarding these SBA loans and how to access them. What forms do people need? And we've been hearing from a lot of small businesses that they're kind of a little frustrated. So would you mind just walking us through the process and kind of clearing it up for us?
Yes, absolutely, Rebecca. Thanks again for the opportunity. And I know that with a lot of small businesses out there, there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of uncertainty about the best way to do things or where to even go. And we thought this would be a great way to just kind of bring some clarity and communication to what is really going on or what is really available out there right now and what's the best thing to be doing right now. So from the SBA side of things, probably the main thing right now that the SBA is offering as of right now is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. This is a direct loan from the SBA that they offer through their online website. You apply online, and then they will offer a low interest loan for up to 30 years. For business owners, it's 3.75% fixed interest rate during that 30-year period. The SBA automatically sets up your loan for a 30-year loan, and there's no prepayment penalty or anything like that. So you can make extra payments or pay it off earlier. You don't need to wait the entire 30 years. But really, the whole idea behind it is to make payments as affordable as possible during this kind of time of uncertainty. The SBA also is offering specific nonprofit organizations this same program, except it's at a 2.75% fixed interest rate. Now, there are quite a few restrictions as far as what types of nonprofits are eligible. So we can kind of go into that in more specifics if there are additional questions about that. But I think what's most important is that this is a program that's available to a wide range of businesses that can take advantage of these funds right now. So I think what we're going to do right now is, because this is a direct loan for the SBA, you aren't working with any banks or anything to get this loan money, but it can sometimes be a little bit confusing when you go out to their site and try and navigate through the different forms and try and determine where you need to go and what you need to fill out. So we're going to do our best to help you get through that right now with kind of a test case or an example. And we'll get as far as we can. We obviously won't submit an actual application, but we'll try and get through as much of it as possible, and then certainly happy to answer any questions or anything else that maybe some people have been struggling with and try and find some solutions. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen so that we can kind of walk through this together. And just bear with me a moment. So one thing that maybe some of the small business owners may have found today if they were trying to go and apply is the SBA's website is down right now. There has been a lot of traffic obviously going to the site. They say that this was a scheduled maintenance just because they understood there was a lot of traffic, and so they're in the process of increasing the bandwidth however they need to make it a little faster to navigate through. So unfortunately, we can't actually go out to the website and click through the process on a live case. But we do have some slides here with screenshots, which is essentially the same thing. Where we can just walk through what you're gonna be seeing when you go through one of these applications. To get to where we need to go, the website is www.sba.gov/disaster. And if you go to that website, you're going to see a screen that looks like what you're seeing on my screen here. Now, the state of Texas is already eligible for these funds, so you do not have to go and click the red circle that talks about your eligibility. You can go ahead right to step 2 and the blue circle to apply online. Once you do that, you're going to come to a registration screen. You do have to create a username and a password. This is just simply because if you ever have to leave or pick up where you left off or save an application, you'll be able to do that and not have to start all over again. So you're simply just creating the username and password so that you have access to get in and out of your application, check on the status of your application, make any changes or updates as needed. Once you click on the register button, you're going to see a screen that says user registration. Here you're going to put in just your personal information, name, address, social security number, date of birth. This doesn't have anything to do with your business because again, this is just for the registration, for you to actually have access to the online system. And then you'll come to the second page of the user registration. Here you'll create your username and password, security questions, get all that filled out, and that's it. At that point, you will have your username and password. Make sure you do whatever you need to do to save that username and password so that you don't forget it. Important to keep that in mind. Once you've done that and you've entered your username and password and logged in, you're going to come to this screen here. There's two selections for businesses and nonprofits or for homeowners and renters. Because this is for economic injury for small businesses, we're going to click on the first the businesses box. You're then going to come to a screen here where you have to select what type of business that you have. Is it a sole proprietorship? Is it an LLC? Is it a corporation, partnership? You'll just select whatever it is. And then at the bottom, you're going to select the economic injury checkbox. That's the only thing you're going to check. They make it real nice and clear with the big warning box that that's the only thing to select. So make sure you do that. One thing I do want to mention on this page here, we have gotten some questions from business owners that say, what if I have multiple businesses? What do I need to do? What we've been told from SBA is that you do not have to, they don't want you to apply, 3, 4, 5 times, depending on how many businesses you have. Use your primary business or a business that, that whatever business is being affected. Use that one business to get all this submitted. Once the SBA contacts you, they will have, a lot of the information already, and you can discuss with them your other businesses so that they can kind of come to a full financing package for all of your business relationships. So just something to keep in mind there as a common question that we have been getting. The next screen here, you're going to have to select the state and county that you're in. This is typically just a lot of times when you have to, when people go through disasters, they have to ensure that they're in the right, they are eligible for this disaster. Obviously, the state of Texas and really the entire country, we already know that answer, and so you're just going to select your state and county, and then you're going to select the disaster description. You're going to select is the coronavirus, and those dates there, the disaster date and filing date. That's the time frame that applications are accepted. So while it does give you quite a while to apply for this, I would recommend to get it done as quickly as possible. The next page you're going to come to is just some certifications, making sure that you're giving truthful and accurate information when we go through the application. Same thing here on the next one, just providing accurate and correct information, understanding that this is a government loan. This is something that they will do, some background checks and information to make sure that you haven't had any other losses to the government with other loans or things of that nature. Once you get through that, I would say we're at kind of the home page of the application. So you'll see here at the top, this is kind of I would kind of look at this as kind of like a checklist. And the first thing you have to do there is complete the disaster loan application. Now we're going to go through, the one we're going to go through today is for sole proprietorships. The application for other businesses that are not sole proprietorships is slightly different, and I believe I have a form that will show a little bit of the differences. But I hopefully this will at least give you a good idea of what to expect. So when we go to so what you'll do is you'll click on the Start button, and that'll start the application. You'll complete all the information that it's asking, especially the items that are notated with the red label. Those are required fields, names, addresses, other personal information. On the right side there, you'll see a contact information box. That's very important to have that correct because that's how SBA is going to be contacting you. So make sure you have your email in there correct, or cell phone or work phone, whatever you would prefer them to contact you at. I'd probably put at least 2, maybe 3 options there, just so that they do have alternative ways to contact you as well. Down towards the bottom, mailing address and income information. Keep in mind that, especially with the income information, this is really just kind of the main application that an SBA processor is going to be looking at. They're still going to be checking things like your tax returns and other financial statements. So I wouldn't say this has to be down to the penny or anything with your income, but we just need to make sure that it makes sense when an SBA processor looks at it, that the income that you're putting on there makes sense with what your financial information shows. And there will be a page here in just a second that will have a place where you can put comments in. So if there is something that looks a little bit different or is a little bit abnormal from maybe the income or some other information, you can certainly just make a note there to the processor just to give them a heads up as well. But this is going to be the first page of the application.
Okay, Jesse, this is Elysia here. I have a couple of questions that just to clarify for
Yes.
those who may be filling out the sole proprietor application. So at the top on the previous page, it did say home slash sole proprietor. And I know on the actual paper form, it says there's actual home sole proprietor. So just to clarify that homeowners and sole proprietors are using the same application, but we're definitely using this for our sole proprietors. If they are a sole proprietor, do they have to be registered with the county as a sole proprietor? Or can someone apply for this loan who has a business and even though they're not registered, they're considered a sole proprietor because they're self-employed and they may have an employee identification number or EIN?
That's a
Or
good
we think
question,
these
Elysia. Yes.
things.
Um, so to answer your question, as long as they are a sole proprietor, they are self-employed, they would be eligible to complete the application. Now, you talk about having the correct filings with the county or city or however it is. I wouldn't be surprised if the SBA might ask if you do have some of that documentation, just to ensure that your sole proprietorship business has filed everything correctly, or just is considered a legal business that's able to be operated based off of where they're at. But as far as the application goes, would not be a problem to have them apply. And then, if there is something that SBA would come back and say, well, we would like to have you file something, that might be something that they ask for. My assumption would be, as long as you can show that you are legally able to operate as you are, they're going to be fine with that. So, does that answer
Okay,
your question, Elysia?
it does. And then it brings me to the second question for the total annual income. A lot of these sole proprietors or just some of the corporations are fairly new businesses that came into being the end of 2019 or started the beginning of 2020. So is there a protocol or requirement for how long the business has been up and running? Or is there a total amount of annual? Because some of these businesses do not have a total annual income. They're just getting started, but they may have the means to show that they have been showing some profit.
Yeah,
Is that
that's a great question, Elysia, and actually that's something that has been a common question. Is how long do you have to be in business to be eligible to apply? What we have been told as of this afternoon, actually, is that what we were told originally was that the business had to be in operation for at least 2 years. Now, while that will probably be easier for them to look at information just because there will be taxes filed and things of that nature, they did tell us this afternoon that businesses that are less than 2 years old, even businesses that are less than 1 year old, are eligible to apply as well. However, because they are not going to most likely aren't going to have a tax return completed for the business, what they're going to want to ask for is a income and expense report or a profit and loss report that will show what the revenues that the business had, what expenses did the business have, and even if it is less than a year, they will likely want to know, what was the time frame that these revenues and expenses occurred. Because what they're going to do then is, when they get that information, they're going to look at that and they want to see, what were your revenues before this crisis happened, and and expenses before this crisis happened, and then what are they now that you're going through this, and what's that gap, or what's that difference? And so to be able to show how you've been affected, that's really where the SBA is going to be able to calculate what they can provide based off that information. So I'm not going to say that it's going to be, they might come back asking a few more questions, maybe wanting some more detail. Maybe we've heard things like getting maybe some monthly sales numbers is what they may be looking for. But it is possible, and it is they are they are saying that you can certainly apply and see what we can come up with.
okay? So basically, that's stressing the need for good record keeping and bookkeeping to make sure they have the means to show the growth and the profit of the business or any losses they maintain and any expenses that the business has occurred. So that's good information. Thank you so much.
Yes. Yep, that's exactly right. You know, the whole purpose behind this economic injury disaster loan is to help businesses that are, you know, truly suffering from, you know, what has happened. And if the business cannot show that, you know, where the comparison is or where the gap was, it's going to be more difficult for the SBA to be able to provide funding where compared to a business that can show that has that record keeping that can show what the differences were. So, yep, absolutely. Going to the next page here, so then after you'd complete page 1, you'd have page 2 here. And here's a little bit of a gray area that we're finding where it talks about damaged property information. Obviously, this isn't really a natural disaster where you have physical damage to a property. We've actually been told that this may be an area that you can actually skip as well, even though it is marked as a required field, but we haven't been in to actually test it. My recommendation would be to go ahead and just, you know, fill out, you know, either your residence or where the business address is. And I really don't think the SBA is really, it's not really going to be any information that the SBA uses for this application. But if you can just, you know, try and complete it as to the best of your ability, that would be great. Going on to the next page then. We're going to kind of dig in more to the debts that the business has. Now, again, we're focusing on sole proprietorships with this application. So here it talks about what the debts that you have on your primary residence, and then you can also add debt. If you see kind of in the middle of the screen, there's a section where you can click Add Debt and then add additional debts if you had other types of loans to put out there. Again, since this is a sole proprietorship application, they are asking for you know, anything from auto loans, other installment loans, mortgage loan, all of that information to complete this section. And then down towards the bottom here, you'll have assets. That's where you'll put in, you know, your bank account balances, retirement accounts, any personal property. If you have other real estate, that would go in those boxes there. Towards the bottom there, it talks about a FEMA registration number. That was a common question: is do I have to go to FEMA and apply? You do not. That is something that some people do have them just because they've had previous disaster loans, but you do not have to register with FEMA for this. You can just skip that section there.
So some quick question on this page before you go to the next one, Jesse.
Yes.
So in the debt area, because some of these business owners, they may be married or have maybe a common law spouse, and some of them don't really pay any other debts. It may be on that spouse. But for business purposes, as I'm asking this question as a former loan advisor and former banker, so I have my banker's hat on, and you would be perfect to answer this question. So like any traditional loan, would we want them to put on this application any debt that they may be listed? We don't want them to put none. So if they have a house, if they own a home, and that other spouse is paying that mortgage completely, do we still want to put that on in that section? Because it will show maybe on their credit report. So we want to just make sure that they're putting everything if they're listed and not putting zero or putting I have no debts. Because I think that may count against them, correct? Or can you clarify that?
Yeah, that is a good question, Elysia, because under a traditional loan application, I would agree with that, you know, if you're on the loan and responsible to pay it, then you've got to list it. I would say that it would probably be in your best interest, if you can, to go ahead and include any debts that are like that. If you don't feel like you that you truly don't have a responsibility to pay a debt for some reason. Maybe it's a daughter's car loan or something like that. You could probably not include it on there and maybe add it to the comments field that you put on there that, the reason I chose not to add this is because this is not something that I am paying for. Again, that's a little bit different from a traditional loan application. And the reason is because with what SBA is doing here is they're going to be looking more so at what the business is the cash flow of the business and making sure what liability, what debts the business actually has to pay for. That might sound a little confusing, but really we want to make it as simple as possible. And if it's just maybe one or two debts that are out there that maybe you don't normally pay on, and you just want to put it out there, that's fine. Otherwise, like I said, I would probably, you could just add it to your comments that there are other debts, but they are more personal debts, or they are debts that a spouse pays, or a daughter pays, or a son pays. That's probably how I would look at it. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And
so then we get to the last.
Oh, I'm sorry. So for the pre-disaster assistance and values, so just to clarify, we want anything if they've applied for any pre-disaster monies that was before COVID-19, correct?
Exactly. Yes.
All right. All I have on that one.
Yep. We get to the last section here of the application, and these are just disclosure statements. It's pretty straightforward, just yes or no, depending on if it applies to you. So just go through that. Business activity, again, this is a sole proprietorship application. So here is really about the only spot that you're going to actually talk about your sole proprietorship business. What type of business is it? The date that the business was established, and how many employees you have. That's important to SBA because they want to see if you've had loss of employees. That's something that they want to, one of the goals they are trying to do is keep people employed, and so they want to be able to track and monitor that. The very bottom, representative information. If you're paying someone to assist you with this application, I've reached out to SBA and have confirmed that they do not allow for fees to be collected for these applications. So I'm not 100% sure why that question is even on there, but you can go ahead and just skip that as well. There's a consent form on the next page that you're just simply understanding that the SBA is going to do some, background check and information with what you have input for your information. And then here's that comments box that I was referring to. So if there's anything unusual, anything a little bit different that you might just want to let the SBA processor know, be aware of, you can feel free to type whatever you need to there. So once you've done that, you've completed the first section of the checklist. And really, it looks a little bit like we've got a whole lot more to do, but really once you get that first section, you're halfway there. The next section, it says if you're applying for assistance related to COVID-19, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Supporting Information form. So you'll click on the start for that section, and it'll take you to a page where you can actually click and download this form, and you fill that form out, and then you can upload it right back into the system. So nothing you have to actually, I believe nothing you have to actually print out and sign, but you can download it, fill it out, and then upload it right into the information. And I do have if you bear with me just a second, I believe I have a example of that form, so you can see that. This is the form that you're gonna end up seeing when you download that. It's very simple questions. Was the business in operation a year prior to the disaster? What were the gross revenues? What were the cost of goods sold? Any rental properties or income? if you received any compensation from the disaster already. And there's a signature line. You should just have to type that in, though. Nothing you have to actually print out and sign. That's all this form is. You just fill that out, upload it right back into the system, and then you're done with that section. All right, so that takes you to that section, and then you're going to go to item number 3, request for transcript of tax return. That'll be very similar to the previous form, where you go here, you click the start button, you click download. It'll take you to the form, which looks a little bit like this, I believe. Nope, I'm sorry. It looks like this. Now, once you fill in your information, all of this, I believe, is going to pre-fill onto this form. So you won't actually even have to fill out anything on this form. It should already be on there. And all you'll have to do then is at the bottom of the form, you will have to sign that form. Now, I believe for this specific form, they may need an actual physical signature. So you may need to actually print and sign this and then upload it back into the system. This is a form that talks about, this provides the SBA with tax return transcripts so that they can verify your tax return information. And so the IRS is a little bit picky on how these forms are completed, and so they do require a physical signature for this form.
Now, this is Elysia here, and I do have a question on this particular form.
Yes.
Since it's a tax transcript request, on 1A, it says name shown on the tax return if there is a joint to enter the name shown first. So for these sole proprietors, and generally when they do their tax return, they just file their self-employment on a Schedule C on their regular tax return. So if they have a joint person on there, they still have to include them on this form, correct? Because I am seeing that on the application. So we don't want them to leave out any pertinent information that can delay the process of getting this loan.
Yes, that's exactly right, Elysia. For a sole proprietorship, yeah, if it was a joint tax return, you would put both persons' names on section 1A and section 2A. You would only the sole proprietor would have to sign the form, though. That we would not need both persons' signatures. Does that make sense?
It does, and they do need to put in both Social Security numbers in 1B and 2B.
That's correct. Yes.
Verification
yes.
purposes. Perfect.
The IRS is going to verify all of this information at the top to make sure it matches the tax return. So that's one thing to keep in mind. If your tax return shows something different than how it's filled in here, you may need to make a change to that. But yes, you will need the names and the Social Security numbers on those forms. And then once you verified that is accurate, you sign the signature line, and you're done with that form. You can go ahead and upload that form back into the SBA system. All right, so after that, let me just go back a couple here. So after that, we've completed the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Supporting Information form. We've completed the request for transcript of tax return form. After that, the last two things are just one more disclosure. Again, making sure that you have been telling the truth and you still are. And then the very next page, the very next page, I don't think I have an image of that, but that will be where you actually submit your application. And that application will get submitted. It'll go into the SBA's queue for processing. And at that point, you've completed everything you need to do, and you'll be waiting for SBA to contact you. Now, I mentioned before that this is for a sole proprietorship, so it is a little bit different than maybe a non-sole proprietorship business. I do have an image here of kind of what the checklist looks like for a LLC or a corporation or a partnership. There's just a couple more items that that you'll see. One of them here is the personal financial statement form, and then below that's the schedule of liabilities form. Now, both of those forms are still forms that can be done online through the system. I think I have an example of those here. This is the application form for the LLC or corporation or partnership form. You'll see here there's a little bit more information. It talks a little bit more about the business itself, the business's legal name, tax ID number, property address, who the owners are. All of that information will need to be input for that. Other than that, I mean, it's pretty similar as far as the original application we looked at for the sole proprietorship. Here is an example of, I'm going to go back just a couple here. So I'm going to show you an example now of the SBA form, or the personal financial statement, the number 2 on the checklist here. And this would be what you'd see after you click on the start for that. You're just going to fill out the date, your salary, your other income sources on this page. The next page will be talking about any real estate you own and completing that information. This next page is going to be talking about other personal assets. Again, cash on hand, bank accounts, retirement accounts, life insurance, any of that information. And then and then also personal debts. So any sort of personal debts that you have, auto loans, real estate loans, credit cards. And that is pretty much, let me go back and see here. So we talked about the personal financial statement, the schedule of liabilities. I think I have a separate page for that. It's going to look like this if you actually print it out, but I believe there on that you will actually go through the system just like normal and enter this information. It's not anything that you'll have to print out and sign or anything like that. But this is just simply listing the debts that the business has. And then the next form is the same form that we looked at for the economic injury supporting information. And then the request for transcript of tax returns is the next thing. We looked at that as well. Now on that, because it is an LLC or an additional business entity, you'll have a tax return transcript not only for yourself personally, but for the business entity itself as well. So that'll need to be completed there. And again, that'll be all pre-filled as well from the application information you put in. It does talk about requesting the federal income tax return. From what I understand, all they're asking for right now is the 2018 federal taxes. If you have 2019 done, you can submit that. But either 2018 or 2019 taxes is all that they are needing to see at this time. If they need more information, they'll reach out to you at that point. So, but that's really, I know that's probably not quite as much information on the business entity side, but it really, those are kind of this is just kind of the process of what to expect and what you'll see. And this is really, that means once you click submit and get that application submitted, at that point, we're hearing that it's probably, it's still very early in the program, so we don't know exactly how long it will take to get a response. But I've been telling people probably don't be surprised if it's a week or two, just because of the amount of traffic going on. This is something that, people are submitting nationwide. And so there could be some delays, which is unfortunate because we understand that small businesses need this capital as quickly as possible. But that's kind of just, I want to set expectations on this is what to expect. And again, I don't work for SBA. This is to the best of our knowledge. We're getting information on a daily basis of updates, but this is what we are seeing, what we are hearing from businesses that have already applied. This is, as up to date as information as we can provide you as possible. That's really all I have right now, and I think we can probably turn it over to Rebecca if there's some questions that myself and Elysia would be happy to answer from the community.
Jesse, thanks so much. You did just a fantastic job, and Elysia, you too, in helping kind of direct how this goes. At this time, actually, there aren't any questions, so you must have done a fantastic job. What we're going to do, though, is keep this open. So if you do have questions, please post them below. We're going to direct all of the questions through Elysia first, and then she can kind of guide if it needs to go to Jesse or if it needs to go to someone else. That way we can get you the most current and up-to-date information. Anything else, Jesse or Elysia, that you'd like to add to this before we close it out?
I will pose another question to Jesse, only because, again, I know some small businesses, they may have this in the back of their mind, but they're usually afraid to ask. Because this is a different type of loan application, and a lot of our small businesses are very familiar with, again, these different type of secure loans, traditional loans, merchant type credit loans. Is there a reason? And generally it's different. They're not asking as much information. What would you tell our small business owners out there the reason for why they're asking so many questions, digging into the assets, such as life insurance, any type of retirement annuities that they have out there? What would you say to them? Because some of them really have these questions, but they may be wondering it, thinking it, but afraid to ask why they're digging so deep into their financial background.
Sure, that's a great question, Elysia, and I think it can be a little bit probably frustrating sometimes because as a business owner you want to get this completed as quickly as possible, and some items might you feel might not really be that relevant to what you're trying to get done, and I would probably actually agree with a lot of the frustrations. A business loan, especially a government loan, is gonna always have kind of some additional questions and things that maybe don't quite seem like they make sense, but there are specific requirements and regulations that have to be checked as far as is this considered a small business, or what other liabilities or partnerships are they involved in, and they have to really assess that everything is eligible. I would say that 95% of the time it's a very simple understanding of, yes, all these businesses meet these criteria, but unfortunately there's those one or two exceptions that make it so that we have to kind of go through that additional information and make sure that there's nothing that's a little bit out of the ordinary that's not being met. So really my advice on some things, if there's some things that they're asking for that just don't really make sense and you're not really sure what you should or shouldn't add in there, is kind of going back to the comments box. If there is something that you just absolutely don't feel that needs to be presented, but you want to at least let the SBA know that you have this other side charity that you're a part of, that you don't think you need to put it in there, but you just want to let them know that you are aware, you want to make sure that they are understanding of that. Leave it off and just make a comment about it. Eventually what's going to happen is the SBA processor or loan officer is going to reach out to you, and they're going to probably have questions about your application anyways. So at that point, you can update them with further information. They can get their questions answered, and I don't want anyone to feel like by forgetting something that they're going to automatically disqualify you. They're going to ask those questions just to make sure that everything has been put in accurately and there's nothing that's gotten missed. And then if you forget to add something, they're not going to they're not going to automatically decline you or something. They're just going to make sure that everything's been accounted for. So do as best as you can on those applications. Elysia and I are happy to answer any general questions as far as the process. But I would hope that people aren't discouraged from applying just because maybe something doesn't looks like it will be too hard or too complicated. Do the best you can, and let's get these applications in so that you can get in line. And then if there's any confusion or anything with that process, that then when the SBA reaches out, hopefully they can provide some additional answers for you. But I guess that's what I would say, Elysia.
Absolutely, and I would agree. And sometimes people don't realize some of the accounts and that they have actually turn out to be assets, and they have assets that they don't even realize that they have that can work in their favor for this. But at the very least, what we want to do, and I agree with you in the very beginning, you said the registration, these small businesses should at least register. So if they do want to apply for this loan, they have until December 31st of 2020 to apply. So I would agree with you there. At least if they get that registration part done, they can come in and complete these applications, sometime before the end of the year.
Yeah.
And I have a question, Jesse. Is this a first come, first serve, so that they need to hurry up and get it done because they're going to get accessed first?
Yes. I mean, this is now, I can't remember off the top of my head how much funds have been set aside for this program, but it is a nationwide program, and I guess I wouldn't be too concerned as far as not getting the funds eventually, but just a matter of how much traffic is going to be coming onto these applications. My biggest concern is really more just the time frame of how long it'll take. I've heard anywhere from 2 weeks to 6 weeks, and we certainly hope it's going to be anywhere close to 6 weeks. But the sooner that you can get it in. One thing to keep in mind too is once you hear of what the SBA can offer you, that doesn't mean you have to take that money. That's certainly up to you to decide if you want to take part or all of those funds. So just the ability to get your application in and get to the point of being able to find out what is available to you is very important. I would hate to have someone that doesn't think they need it initially, and then 2 weeks later they decide they do need it, and then they got to they got to start from the beginning at that point. If you have any thought that this might be something you'd be interested in, I would get your application in right away.
Great information. Thank you both. And Jesse, thank you for sharing your screen with us. That was very valuable information that we really needed, so thanks so much. Thank everybody for tuning in. If you have questions, please definitely let us know. We will make sure that we get those to the right people and get those answered for you. Jesse and Elysia and I were chatting just before this about there's going to be lots of follow-up information. So look for us to be providing that information to you. Check back here on the Facebook page, Killeen Chamber on Facebook, or killenchamber.com. We'll get all that information to you that we possibly can. Elysia, Jesse, thanks so much. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.